Welcome, everybody, to the Free State Podcast. I don't know what episode this is, and I don't really care. But we didn't have an episode last week because we didn't feel like having an episode last week. That's how we do things around here now. Legislation is over. It's a little bit more relaxed, and we're focusing on, libertarian stuff. So that's what we're doing. We have a great guest tonight, and I appreciate him coming on. James Cook. He is the newly elected mayor of Rock Hall, Maryland, on the Eastern Shore. James, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And I mean, the fact that you didn't have a show last week means that we do know that this is last week's show, right? I think that's what we came up with. To logically deduce, this is last week's show.
This is last week's show.
So now we know what show it is. This week. So we can start now.
Yeah. Of course, we have our good friend Scott here. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. All right, James, let's get right into it. So let's start from the beginning, right? Let's talk about what made you want to run, because you were previously a town council person in Rock Hall. So what made you want to run for town council in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's kind of a multifaceted thing. I mean, I've always been interested in politics. It's a love-hate relationship. I feel like most of us have with it. It's really, really frustrating, but I feel like you can either do one of two things with it. You can either just resign and just kind of throw Molotov cocktails at the system, metaphorically, not literally. I don't want to put that out there, but just kind of you can kind of resign and just say, I hate it all these people are terrible, which you're not wrong. Or you can say, yeah, these people are all terrible, but what can I do, right? And I think a lot of the challenge and the glamour, the glamour is to attack federal and state politics and whatever. You have very, very little impact there. You have almost no impact there. And if you did have impact there, that would end very, very quickly. That's just typically how things go. So what can you do, realistically speaking? And so I don't know, I got kind of involved and interested in federal and state, conceptual politics. I don't know, 2010 maybe, I was 16, 17 years old, got really interested and saw this guy. My dad and I used to watch the Republican debates. He still is a Republican. But I kind of got into politics just as a conversational piece with him. And, I was sort of thought that most people were saying the same thing, right? But then you see Ron Paul. This is actually Ron Paul round 2 because I was way too young the first time. But, the 2012 campaign, really, I started to pay attention, right after the CPAC in 2010. And then when he started getting into the debates in 2011, I was like, this guy's saying something different. And it's almost like a switch. When you hear somebody say something that's different, it makes you think, right? And then from then on, you just you get lost. Not everybody. Some people get lost in the whole thought process and developing all that. So then, you go through the whole stage of I hate all this. This is all stupid. Why is everybody so dumb? Why can't they see what seems to be so obvious to me? But, I think one of the things that, changed in my mind is, again, trying to make that impact. Where do you have the most impact on a local level? I think that's the obvious answer. It's almost so obvious that most people don't pay attention to it. I can't tell you how many people either don't vote or don't know who their local elected officials are, have never talked to them. Maybe you have talked to them, you just have no idea who they are, right? And those people arguably have much more of an impact on your daily life than you realize. And so realizing that and kind of coming to the conclusion that, I really do care about people in general. I like the ideology and the economics and all that stuff. But I do really just want people to do better and be safer and more prosperous and to be able to pursue their lives. I want them to not have to pay attention to politics. I think that's the one thing I've taken from libertarianism and libertarian philosophy is I hate the fact that we have to pay attention to politics. It's really frustrating. So that was kind of the conceptual framework from which I started to view everything. And I realized that my town was having a town election in 2021. And they were dealing with a lot of problems, just I don't know, like a declining economy, kind of like loss of population, which translates to lost revenue for the town and all this stuff. Mainly it was infrastructure, which is a big thing that a lot of small towns are dealing with. And one of the things I do professionally is I work for an engineering company. We do a lot of like civil and environmental engineering, which is water, wastewater, all the things that my town was dealing with. So I'm like, hey, I'm not going to run just to run. I'm not going to run just to spread a message necessarily. I'm going to run because I really do have something to add. I can really help, right? And I think one of the interesting, I don't know if it's interesting, one of the unfortunate about politics is that you tend to attract people that have a little bit of an ego. The people that are attracted to the title and the prestige. It's not very prestigious being on town council, I'll tell you that. But some people really do think it is. And so you're attracted to, and that just escalates at all levels, right? So it goes town council, mayor, county commissioner, state rep, and then, congressman. It's like this draw, and it has a disproportionate draw of people that are looking for status and power and all that kind of stuff, which personally I had no interest in whatsoever. So in my mind, I'm like, hey, that's another check in my box, not to, toot my own horn or anything like that. But I have no desire for power, both like on just a natural level, but also from a philosophical level. And I knew that I could actually help the town deal with some of the problems, from a fiscal, financial standpoint. I've got a bunch of different degrees in business related, MBA, finance, and all that stuff, but also in engineering. So I'm like, hey, I can actually solve a lot of these problems that the town is going through with, poor financial management, poor planning for the future, no maintenance programs, failing wastewater treatment plant, water, like all the basic stuff that you need to just live a basic life, right? So I'm like, hey, this is like really low hanging fruit, and I really do want to help, right? So I ran. It was a pretty crowded. Race, honestly. There was 2 open council seats, and there were 6 people running, and it was really eye opening. It was kind of interesting. Local politics it feels almost like big time politics at times. Like you get the debate, and there's like there's like the League of Women Voters is hosting this thing, and then I don't know. It feels a little bit bigger than it actually is. But at the end of the day, it was great. I had a lot of people from, like Kyle was out there, and Alex, and David. Everybody came and helped me door knock. It was help me pitch in, make the signs and the handouts and the rat cards and all this stuff. Knocked on all the doors in town. I was the youngest person running. Most people would know who I was. Side note, this is a small community, right? Everybody knows everybody. Most people don't know who I was because I was homeschooled. My mom homeschooled. I'm one of 10 kids. We're homeschooled. So everybody knows each other from high school. And there's only one high school in the area. And so everybody knows everybody. So nobody knew who I was. But I think really just going out there, door knocking, talking to people, being receptive and listening. I came out, I had most votes out of anybody. So, got elected to council. There was a lot of, I would say, pushback from, I think the establishment's the wrong word, but imagine small town establishment, everybody knows everybody. They've been just around, the mayor at the time, her husband is a House delegate, and they're friends with the county commissioner, and those types of things. Everybody knows everybody, small town, kind of like good old boy type situation. And then you have this newcomer that has a lot of energy. Nobody's quite sure exactly where the political leanings are. I didn't run as a libertarian because it's a nonpartisan race, and I was really concerned about bringing party politics into it. But anybody that asked me, I told them, and it was over time, even though the pushback early on was everyone was unsure as to what I was doing, whether I was coming in to kind of jeopardize the whole situation or if I was actually trying to help. Over time, I feel like I did earn a good reputation. One of the first things I did was, realizing that there's no money for water mains, and water mains are breaking. People have, bad water, that'll get somebody's attention. Even though maybe on a philosophical level, I realized that it's not an ideal system to go out and just beg the feds for money and whatever. But, I did the grant process, and I got, $1.5 million to replace a couple water mains. Right. So that started to earn some of that. Oh, he's actually serious, and he's willing to, literally door knock and talk to people and fill out grant applications and get things done. So a lot of that kind of snowballed into people starting to trust some of the things that, you know, I was doing. I figured, you know, you get in there and you put in the work, do the legwork, get a good reputation, and then you can really start to earn the trust of your fellow council members, the mayor, the local political establishment, and then you start to respect some of the things you have to say. And then you can really start, you know, tweaking and making things actually better. You know, one of the things early on that kind of I felt like set the tone for what I was trying to do, but also how I feel like libertarian philosophy can interject into even local politics or whatever. I've told this story before, but I think it's really important. It kind of sets the stage for a lot of the other things that, not that I was able to do, but I was able to be a part of. You know, early on, it was right after the Trump election, and people were the Trump-Biden election, and there were some anti-Biden people that had some profanity-laced signs out in their yard, apparently, and you know, a lot of people that were not of that political persuasion were frustrated, and they wanted the town to, you know, do fines for people to have signs in their yard, or to have an ordinance against signs in people's yard, or to get a permit to have signs, like those types of things. Like, I don't like what you have to say. Let's use the local government to make these people not say what I don't like. You know, and that was frustrating. You know, that was one of the things that you're kind of thrust in the middle of this. You know, it's supposed to be local politics, but it's almost this culture thing, right? The major political parties are now influencing local neighbors, right? That was frustrating for me to hear. Neighbors are frustrated with each other because they don't agree on a political level at the federal level. And so one of the things that, you know, I started saying, you know, would ask the people that were complaining is, have you talked to the person, told them how you feel? And that simple question seemed to stump people a little bit. Like, it almost never dawned on them that they could go talk to their neighbor about something they were frustrated about.
It's crazy, isn't it? You talk to people and they might you know, understand what you're saying.
Exactly.
I do the same thing. I not to cut you off, but I mean, there's, you know, in Anne Arundel County, right? We have to have a permit in order to have chickens in Anne Arundel County. And people are like, what do I do to get chickens? Do I need to, you know, do the permit? Like, I tell them, like, you don't need to do the permit. Just talk to your immediate neighbors, or the neighbors that might be in earshot, you know, of a hen, and tell them that you plan on getting chickens and see if they're okay with it. 9 times out of 10, they're okay with it. And then you're good, right? There's nobody to call the county on you. There's nobody to rat on you. You just talk to your neighbors, be a neighbor, you know, be part of the community. And that really can resolve a lot of issues.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I think that's key, is just honestly talking to people, because I feel like as individual relationships disintegrate, people start to rely on more of a central authority more. And that really takes away from community, just communication, right? And that's when you have a lot of people calling the county or the town or something like that. And so that part is, I think, integral in trying to utilize or kind of implement libertarianism on a local level, or at any level. I don't know if anybody can hear, but touching on your your chicken thing, I have mini pigs, and so they're kind of oinking in the background a little bit. They just came in from outside. But that was one thing, you know, early on, people were like, hey, why does he have pigs? And, you know, whatever. It was a whole thing. This was even before I ran. But one of the things that you know, helped to do was the backyard chicken piece. So, you know, before, it really wasn't permitted, and neither was a lot of, you know, different types of animals, but you know, kind of change the rules around that to be based off of land, like how much land you have can have a certain amount. So, like, even though that's not a complete win, it's more of an incremental, like, oh, this is okay. Right. Oh, I know this guy, he's got, you know, mini pigs. They're different from farm pigs, so that doesn't quite fit the rules either. So we're fine. And then also chicken. So now I think there's 5 or 6 different houses now that have backyard chickens, right? So it's kind of cool to see how people take to that, and there's been no disruption at all.
Yeah, it's great. And that's like what I like about what you've done, is because, like, okay, we us as libertarians, right? We have an ideal that we would like to get to, and some people are like, I don't know if it's that we're so jaded, or if it's that we're just a little bit too autistic, that we can't like see the incremental steps that have to be taken in order to get to like our, quote unquote libertarian society. And it's little things, right? Like right now I'm getting there now that my son's lacrosse season is done. I'm going to start working on the zoning laws with Anne Arundel County Council of getting the zoning laws so that we don't have to have a permit in order to have backyard chickens. Like, sure, there's going to be some sort of leeway that you have to be part of, but there's no reason that somebody with a quarter acre or maybe even a little bit less can't have at least a certain amount of hens without getting some permit. And, it's like the permit, and it's one thing to have the permit, but it's another thing that the permit says that, the Department of Agriculture can come on your property at any time. They can dictate where your coop goes, how many chickens you can have. Like, you know what I mean? There's all these, it's one thing to ask permission. It's another thing to dictate like every little aspect of owning these things that obviously they don't do anything. So yeah, that's what I like about the way that you have been successful in being an elected official as a libertarian, is that you've just, it's little incremental changes towards like the libertarianism. It's not just like, scorched earth, like end the government. You know what I mean? It's, you have to see where people, see people where they are. And from what I understand, Rock Hall is a relatively older population in the town. So you can't go in there scorched earth. And by you kind of being incremental in the things that you've done and proven that your policy can change things and like going for federal grants, that money's there, right? If you don't take it, somebody else is. So get it, right? We've paid into the system for so long. Take advantage of that system so that it can help the people that you actually care about, help your town. And that's what I really liked about your time in town council. And, what I hope to see out of you as mayor is that you've, slowly incremented towards libertarianism without completely, taking away the fact that you can get state or federal grants for these things to make your area better. Because if you don't take advantage of the money, somebody is.
It's almost to a point where, you can disagree with the system, but that is the system.
Right.
And if you are an elected representative of anybody, any number of people, you have to do what you need to do to improve their lives. That's your job. And you can take things from a corrupt system and do something good with it. And if you don't, exactly like you said, if you don't take it, somebody else will. But also that money was taken from here in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So doing anything that I can to bring it back and use it for the people it was taken from, I will do that. One of the interesting initiatives, I know Maryland's going through a lot of stuff, right? And not all of it is positive. But so I'm on the board of directors for the Maryland Municipal League, which is a pretty big lobbyist group to the state house. And we just hired a new director. And one of the things that she's passionate about, and we've talked a lot about this, is changing the makeup of where municipal dollars go, right? So everything gets funneled to the state, and then barely any of it makes it back to the towns or the people or whatever. And a lot of it gets sucked up in bureaucracy and all that. And I'm pretty sure she's not a conservative, but she's a very reasonable, intelligent person. So one of the things that the group stresses is local control over everything, whether it be, which I love, right? That's libertarian, right? But it's from a left-wing perspective, but I am absolutely on board with working on that. So making sure that funding doesn't leave communities. If you just use the language, it means the same thing. Mm-hmm. The funding doesn't leave the communities, local control of, like, let's say marijuana laws, right? Things like that. They're all about that, even to where the towns have supremacy over the counties and the counties over the state and those types of initiatives. So one of the first things, this recent General Assembly session in Maryland, we had the marijuana law. And, it was basically implementing the referendum on legalizing marijuana. And the unfortunate piece of that bill is that most of the basically the revenue, right? The one thing that they learned from like California and Colorado, who have astronomically high taxes on marijuana, is that creates a black market. So I will give them credit that they realized that, and what they did was they made it the same as the alcohol tax. I'll say that's like, it's not the worst decision you could make. But the bad part about that is it is almost all staying at the state level. None of it comes back to the places where it was generated. So let's say Rock Hall, it doesn't, but let's say Rock Hall had a dispensary or a grow operation or something like that. The money would just leave here and not come back. So one of the initiatives that MML is working for, going into next legislative session, is making sure that that money never leaves the community. As far as the tax revenue, it stays there, which again, that's not perfect libertarianism, but it's much closer than the alternative scenario, which we currently have.
Right.
Is, local control, don't let the money leave the community. So things like that. So there's a little bit of positivity going on there, with more focus on local control and municipal control. But I guess you just have to look at the silver lining on those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be compromises as libertarians that we have to make in office, right? Because, like I was saying, you're not going to build Rome overnight. We're not going to build the libertarian utopia just because you got elected mayor or you're a town councilman, or even if like Travis and I were to win state seats, or David Lasher to win governor, we're not going to change those things overnight. And it's kind of hard sometimes to appeal to other libertarians, because it's like, look, I'm not going to be an anarchist when it comes to my policy in office, because that's not going to work. I'm not going to get anything accomplished. You have to meet people where they are. You have to compromise. Like it does kind of suck sometimes, but you have to compromise. Like you have to have some sort of a semblance of like dare I say, like a sane person. You know what I mean? You can't go full autistic with these policies, because if you do, then one, you're not going to get reelected, and two, nothing's going to happen, right? So like what you've done and what you're talking about, that's the kind of stuff that we all need to focus on. And it's something that we can all learn from you. People that want to run for office eventually is something that we can learn from you and your successes that you had. So with that being said, you've had successes in the town council. What are your goals as mayor now that you are mayor? First, let's talk about your mayoral race and how you decided to run for mayor, and then go into what your goals are as mayor, and the processes and things you plan on going through.
Sure thing. I do want to say one thing before we get started on that, just as an encouraging piece for libertarians that aren't sure about taking this almost like earning your stripes type approach and not going full radical initially. I'm a very, I would say, radical philosophical person, but implementing that is, again, you have to earn. People are so kind of like, they have these preconceived notions. Obviously, this is what they learned in school. This is how things work. And so if you say something opposite to that, you don't have their trust. You need to earn people's trust. And then, once you have that, you can make them not scared if you have an idea that they haven't heard before. And just to illustrate that, this, I feel like, was a really important piece to me. This is not the first time this has happened, but this is it's memorable for me. So I had this individual is a prominent member of the community, fairly wealthy, a lot of, involved in a lot of nonprofits, and basically a very influential person. And, after I had started like basically putting in the legwork and doing a lot of the work with the town, he emailed me and asked if we could meet for coffee. Just like, I want to meet you, because I hadn't really like sat down with this guy one-on-one before. And so we sat down, met for coffee, and he's like, the reason I wanted to meet you is that I have very radically conservative friends, very radically liberal and progressive friends, and all of them like you. And I've never heard that before of any politician whatsoever. And I just want to know, what is it? And he said, I heard that you're not like a Republican or Democrat. I was like, no, I'm a libertarian. And he's like, you mean like, I forget who he said, but I was like, no, not exactly. So I just said, look, I believe, in free individual people, as personal liberty, personal property, all the basics. I said, but at the end of the day, my goal is just to make people's lives better. He's like, it was a longer conversation than that, but it was nice to hear, one, that you attract, if you just cut through all the BS, you can get support from both progressives and conservatives on singular issues, which is pretty cool. And then two, for people to know that is the libertarian perspective, if implemented, is also gaining a lot of that, earning a lot of that trust. So now this person is not scared of the word libertarian anymore, is my point. So there are real changes that you can do by just being a reasonable, good, thoughtful, I guess, leader, right? And you earn that. And so I wanted to share that because that meant a lot to me, both on a personal level and on a philosophical libertarian level, that people stop being scared of that word. People that you never would have thought were on your side, they can be on your side, or at least not scared of that word anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we always talk about in the Libertarian Party is changing hearts and minds. And you're not going to change, your average everyday person's heart and mind by being a complete radical, right? You have to meet people where they are. So yeah, that's a great example, and that's great to hear. And philosophically, yeah, like you were saying, you can be as radical as you want, but when it comes to implementing things or actually talking to people who aren't libertarians, like you have to tone it down some. Like you have to realize that, like I was saying before, you have to do these changes incrementally, and you have to make them realize that, the stereotypical libertarian that a lot of people think about is that, they don't care about people's feelings. They don't care about, what other people are going through, which is the complete opposite of how we are. So, it's having those one-on-one conversations. And when I was running for office, that's what it was, because, I was running in a two-way race against a Republican, and I was getting, pretty, pretty far left people that were supporting me. And then I was getting people that were voting for Donald Trump or voted for Donald Trump supporting me. So I had this huge spectrum of people that were voting for me simply because I came off as just a good person, that I want the best for you. I want the government to get out of the way, and what's best for you. So it's very refreshing to hear that, and coming from somebody who has won office once and now twice. So it's just something that we can all learn from as libertarians, whether you're running for office or not. If you're just door knocking and doing stuff for the party, that's something to take away from. So it's really great to hear, and I'm glad that the way that my mind was working when I was campaigning is working out for you. I had the same mentality. I actually, looked to you and your successes when I was running for office, because I'm like, look, I know this guy thinks a lot, pretty much the same as me, right? We're in the group chat. We're in there for a reason, right? We have the same kind of beliefs in almost everything, but you were able to tone it down. You were able to look at people where they are and meet them where they are and make compromises in your philosophical, ideals in order to get things done. Because at the end of the day, who gives a shit about what your philosophy is? It's matter if you can get things done.
Yeah, and I do want to say you did great in your election. That was pretty impressive, vote turnout for you, and that was great to watch. So I just want to point that out for anybody that isn't aware. You did absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
It's probably because you have too much hair. I'm just saying. Maybe get Scott over here. We'll do the whole.
I need to put some nair on my head.
There you go.
Well, I think most people have a natural distrust of bald people. Just think of Klaus Schwab. With Dr. Evil and Austin Powers. What was the Bond villain? I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Dr. No.
Yes, Dr. No. Thank you. And frankly, rightfully so, they should just trust us. So.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I mean,
all right. So let's get into your mayor race, because that's like really cool, right? It's cool that you got town councilman. That's freaking awesome. But you're mayor, like it's a nonpartisan position again, but you are a libertarian and you are mayor of a town in Maryland of all places.
That's right.
So first start off with, like, what made you want to run for mayor?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not particularly glamorous. It's small town politics stuff. I was on, like I said, I was on town council. I was feeling pretty confident about some of the things I was able to accomplish. Let's see. So I'm watching what I'm saying. There were some things that I thought that the town could be doing better. A lot. So let's start with this. I think the town, it's made up of a lot of older people, right? And all of the elected officials are older, and so it's just, there was a disconnect between the town government and the citizens. Most people had no idea what was going on. And even though I won, twice or whatever, the voter turnout was like 20%, 25% tops. Like, nobody paid attention. That can be a good thing, but also if you don't have engagement, you're probably not doing something correct. And you really only heard about things after the fact if people were upset about something, which again is good. I'm glad people feel comfortable with if they're upset. But basically, I just had a little bit of a different vision from where the town was going. And the mayor spot, in my mind, you can work hard and get a lot of things done as a council member. But just from a vision standpoint, who sets the vision, who sets the tone, who sets the direction, that's the mayor. Right? You can only do so much as a council person. You can do a lot, but you can only do so much. And most people, if you say something or you set the vision as a mayor, most people, if it's a good vision, they will get behind it and get enthusiastic about it. So I feel like I just had a different vision to offer the town, and I just wanted to put it out there. So I was on council, was 2 years in. I still had 2 more years on my term. I knew that, I was still going to be involved at one capacity or another, whether I won or lost. But I really thought that the town could benefit from, I would say, a younger perspective, a more communicative perspective, something that was more engaging to the public, see what the public really needed, what they wanted. So that was my whole impetus for running. It's not that I couldn't get things done on council. It was a little bit more limited, but I think the vision was really where it came down to. And a little bit of just background about my town. So it's one of the oldest towns in Maryland, 1707, right? Very, very old. It's a waterman community, so it's right on the water, and there's a huge marine industry. Like, there's more boats than people, right? Which is pretty crazy. And it had its heyday, I'd say 50s, 60s, 70s, and then it really started, kind of dying off. Town lost revenue, lost money. Infrastructure was failing. The waterfront, the waterman industry had kind of lost its way, and now it's a lot of like charter boats and those kinds of things. So I felt like it was stuck in the past a little bit, and that created a little bit of a divide between the people that are like 7 generation in, and then people that are moving here. And so there's tension there. People are trying to change the culture. You don't appreciate the waterfront, the history or whatever. So I was frustrated by the lack of cohesion, the lack of engagement, a lot of that. So some of the platform things that I ran on was establishing a communications board, which would engage with social media, and put things out on the town website, do more informational campaigns on things that could help people, put information out about what the town is. There's a constant like, hey, the water's not good, the wastewater's not good, but putting out more information that, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the problems we're facing. Just being like really open and engaging to the public. That was like number one for me. The other thing that, kind of ties into the economic downturn and the frustration of people that had lived and worked on the water their whole lives, and now there's really just not enough to go around. And it's a dying piece because it's almost stuck. So I teach at a local community college as well. And one of the things that community colleges have done is do a lot of skilled trades programs. So what I started doing was trying to organize, this is not complete yet, but this is underway, is getting a regional trade school locally here, focusing on like, welding, marine engine repair, basically those things that could support and kind of like bring this old school waterman type lifestyle into the 21st century, make it a viable, occupation again, where, it's weird. every boat, I don't know if anybody's listening is a boater or whatever, but every boat, pretty much every boat, has aluminum on it, and aluminum breaks a fair amount, and you have to weld it. And aluminum welding is very difficult. Alex would know all about this. And there are no aluminum welders here. They bring them in from PA, Delaware, Baltimore, etc. There's no reason.
Come on, man. I'm a welder too. Come on.
Come out here, man. Come out here.
Hook me up, man.
I got you. So it's things like that. It's like, why are we bringing in, you know, marine engine repair guys from Philly for the 14 marinas that we have and the 1,500 boats that are out on the water right now? You know, why are we doing that? And it's, you know, why are there no young people? Well, if they actually want to go make money, they go get jobs somewhere else, or they go to school somewhere else and never come back. So in my mind, I'm like, hey, how do we retain young people here? Because older people don't live as long as young people. Okay, I'm going to throw that out there. It's a little counterfactual for you. But so how do you keep the younger people here so that they can earn a living, raise a family, and work here without having to go in search of, profitable jobs elsewhere? And there's not that option here. So I'm like, okay, look, we need skilled trades, people that can start like sole proprietorship businesses, people that have basic training in one skill or another, that, hey, I'm a welder, I work for myself. Hey, I work on, maybe it's outboard motors. I don't know. Things like that. So I was really focused on the skilled trades piece. And so that was one of the things I'm like, look, my focus is going to be on keeping young people here, bringing young people here, having people raise families here, kind of changing that demographic to where it's all retirees, to where it's a little bit more balanced, changing the economy from like a seasonal economy to something that's a little bit more annual, year round, and not so reliant on tourism. Tourism is great. Awesome. You can't run everything off of tourism because you only have people here for 7, 8, 9 months out of the year. And what do you do the rest of the time? So that was mainly the message as far as like a vision standpoint, better communication, more focus on jobs, training, bringing, skilled trades, blue collar work, which is, I think that's key, just not preaching the whole college thing. I have a lot of degrees, but, honestly, I probably would be making more if I chose a different, if you can make just as much as a welder or as an electrician or a plumber or something like that. So there's no reason why, that shouldn't be the direction. So just kind of like preaching that kind of thing. That's been a huge passion for me. I started even before I started going to college. I went and learned welding, got certified in welding. I love welding. So maybe I'm a little biased from that standpoint. Skilled trades, I love
welding too.
Right?
No, it's like the point you raised too about just a lot of these things are skills that you just learn and you don't need college. Like I have a computer science degree, and then within 3 or 4 years of working after college, pretty much everyone we were hiring didn't have a technical degree. They all went to these 6-month code academy boot camp type things, and it's just like what you're talking about with the trades, and it's just like you don't need to spend 4 years to learn these skills. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's key. And if you can provide that kind of short term, like here's a career that you can learn, I'm not going to say in months, but you can kind of get started, get a feel for it, decide whether you like it or not. If you can do that, I like that idea. It gives a little bit more autonomy to young people and allows them kind of pursue their life and not get into a bunch of debt. And I've been passionate about that.
Yeah, and it makes sense because there's more and more young people that, of course you hear the stereotypical stuff, young people don't want to work anymore and things like that. But there's been studies that have come out that later millennials and Gen Z people are more willing to do the blue collar jobs. They recognize that going, hundreds of $1,000s in debt for a college degree isn't worth it anymore. And instead of sitting in a cubicle or at a desk all day, you can be outside. You can be doing something that you actually enjoy, not something that makes you the most money. And so I feel like there's this cultural shift, and I feel like with what you're saying, it's kind of fitting that cultural shift, right? Me and my wife are talking about, we're going to probably leave Maryland, but the kind of stuff that you're talking about, right? We want to move and get land. We want to raise livestock. I want to, have my own welding business and, she started her own school and all that good stuff, right? It's about, you know, proprietorship in these businesses where you're not hired by some mega corporation to come in and contract out and all this crap. Like, people want to start working for themselves, and people are starting to recognize that you can do everything that we're doing now and have a much smaller impact on the environment. We can have a much larger impact on local economies. And you know, having politicians such as yourself on the local level can facilitate these kind of changes, and that's like really what we need. I don't want to go into the religious aspect of it, because apparently more Gen Zers are, you know, pro, you know, any sort of religion than us millennials are. But you know, there's a part of this cultural shift that is happening, and of course we see the loud stuff, right? We see the stuff that uh, you know, a lot of us wouldn't agree with, where it's, I don't want to get into it really, but you know, the trans stuff, the gay stuff, the drag queen shows, this and that. Like, sure. And the way I feel is, go ahead, do what you got to do. But what I am seeing is that there is a larger shift into a more, you know, quote unquote conservative lifestyle, and not a Republican lifestyle, but a conservative lifestyle, where, you know, you provide for yourself, you have a service to the community, and what you do, the money comes to you, it stays in the community. And that's like really what libertarianism is it's keeping the economy local, um, and kind of trying to negate state and federal laws as much as possible, nullifying state and federal laws as much as possible on the local level. So yeah, that's awesome. You make me want to move to Rock Hall, kind of.
Well, you're welcome. Like I said, we need some brothers. You know,
I would
body double something.
Yeah, it's like, and it's, of course, there's people like you that are putting in this fight, and there's people like me that are just like ready to kind of just jump ship and go somewhere a little bit more friendly. But we need people like that, right? And now I feel bad that I'm thinking about leaving the state, because there are areas like Rock Hall where there's leadership that, you know, is enticing to these kind of people like myself and my wife and things like that, where, you know, we just want 10-15 acres. We just want to have our chickens and our cows, goats, and, you know, have our little, you know, welding business, you know, doing, you know, pontoon hulls, welding aluminum, or, you know, have a little, you know, 3-4 dumpsters that we rent out and repair and stuff like that. Like, that's like what a lot of people are starting to want now. And it's really good to hear that at least a town in Maryland is not going, you know, not selling out, not going corporate, not going woke, not doing all this shit. They just are focusing on the people and kind of reverting back to how we got to be a successful country, right? You know, we didn't become a successful country because of, you know, giant corporate entities and things like that. You know, we became successful off of, you know, single owner, you know, proprietary ownership of businesses and things like that. So it's really refreshing to hear that, and that that's what your goals are, and that's, people are supporting it. Now, you know, it's we need to lean on these older generations for their knowledge, their experience. But the older generations need to recognize that there are young people that want to continue this kind of lifestyle. Sure, we also want our Netflix and internet and things like that. But, you know, there's people that like working on the water. There's people that love working with their hands, people that love working in the land and things like that. So it's really refreshing to hear that from a leader, you know. And congratulations, by the way, on your race. So
Thank you.
I guess my one question, it was an uncontested race, right?
Yes, it was. So at first, there were two people that were going to challenge for mayor, which was the incumbent and then a former council member. And for one reason and then another, the incumbent dropped out. And then the former council person didn't want to run against me, so that he dropped out and he ran for council. So there was, because this was, I guess, an on-year election, right? So it was mayor and then 2 council seats. So we had a pretty good turnout for the council, but nobody ran for the mayor spot, which I don't know if it was exactly because people were supportive of what I was talking about, but there was just very little desire to challenge what I was putting out there. And I want to attribute that to kind of the way I feel like I handled myself on council, as far as trying to bring people together, bring consensus in, and say, look, let's solve this. I'm not going to push things. I'm not going to fight, but let's brainstorm and do this for the best of everybody. It like brought the tension down, which unfortunately my town had a reputation for having very contentious council meetings. In fact, there had been several assaults before or after council meetings before between council members and members of the community. It was a very bad reputation. We haven't had that since I've been on council, which I'm happy about. But I think just bringing that, even in a way, civility, and just, I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to yell. We're going to solve this together. We're all in the same boat, kind of thing. So at the very least, I think that was a piece of why nobody really wanted to challenge, me running. And I still have a good relationship with the two people that were considering running. So I think that was almost a halfway endorsement.
I mean, that's what it's about, right? You got to have some level of civility, right? When I ran against Brian Simonaire, who is going into, come next year, be his 18th year in public office, is the same state senator for the same fucking district. And he when you're running against these people, right? They bring up, you have these meetings with these people, right? There's these, not secret meetings, but Brian Simonaire and I have sat down and had a meal together, right? People think that you were just like, fighting each other the entire time or whatever. No, we sat down, we had a meal together, and some parties are more contentious than others, I guess you could say, right? But I forgot where I was going with this. But you have a level of civility, right? Like, I have his phone number. I could probably I could call him up right now and ask him something, and he'd probably answer the phone. Even though I'm pretty sure I pissed off the Republican, party when he didn't do as good as they're expecting with me, because he lost his Senate minority seat this past year. I think I kind of pissed them off, and I know I pissed off local Republicans that are in, are my councilman. I know I kind of pissed him off a little bit, but same thing with him. I can call him. We have this level of civility, right? We disagree on things, but at the end of the day, you are people that are in the same community, and you want nothing but the people in your community to be successful, be happy, be, healthy, all these great things. So there's that agreement on everything. So, I didn't expect, even though you ran unopposed, and I assume that you did have some opposition, at least initially, that's what we want in politics, right? We want to be able to, I'm sure one of your opponents that initially had decided to run, that can call you and kind of voice their opinion, and you're going to listen to it and you're going to take it into account. Maybe a little bit more than your average citizen, but that's kind of the level of respect that you need in politics. And as much as I disagree with my opponent when I ran, Brian Simonaire, I have respect for him. I do, right? Because the guy has been in office for this long. Whether I agree with how long he's been in office or not, whether I agree with certain donations that he's got or not, Pfizer. But at the end of the day, he is the representative for my district. And, if I have his ear, I have his personal cell phone number, and I feel comfortable giving a call, then I can give him a call. Same thing with Trevor Volke, who is my county councilman. I have his personal, cell phone number. I could shoot him a text at any point in time, and I have, and he's responded. I'm going to be leaning on him here soon with these zoning laws. So it's like, you got to keep a rapport with these people regardless. So, there is a civility in local politics that is maintained, because shit, you're neighbors, right? You don't have a choice. You got to be civil with each other because you might run into each other at the grocery store or at the gas station or something like that. And you're like, fuck you, because I don't disagree with you on these X, Y, and Z. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one of the things that it was important to remember is that everyone, especially on the local level, I don't think there's nefarious people really out there. I think things happen incidentally. Everyone really does believe they're doing the best for their community because they live there. And I will absolutely say the former mayor has been absolutely wonderful in the transition. Like if I need a contact, she's right there. She'll help me out. We still call each other every once in a while, feedback back and forth. Things that because she's been around. She, like I said, her husband's a delegate and she's been mayor before. She's, so she knows a lot of things. And if I need input, like I'll call her and ask her. And we've been opposed to certain things that the other one's doing, but we do have a good rapport and we're all like relatively on the same page. We all want the best for the community. And so she's been great. Former council people have been great. And that's the beauty of local. That's why I love it. Even if we disagree, we still have the same goals, just disagree on how to do it. But yeah, it's respect, civility, good feedback. And honestly, if you listen, that goes a long way. If you just say, hey, look, can I get your opinion on something? Like genuinely, then people are completely disarmed. All of that defensiveness kind of goes away.
Yep. One correction. I always do this because I went to high school with his younger brother, Nathan Volke, not Trevor Volke. Trevor Volke is his younger brother who I went to high school with, and I always do that. So thanks, David. Thanks for correcting me. I will continue to make that mistake probably for the rest of my life. But yeah, because Trevor, we hung around in the same circles, so it's just Trevor Volke. I think that's the Volke that's in my head. So thanks, David. So minor correction on my misspeaking. So James, dude, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything kind of in the works that you can kind of spew out there, or you just kind of slowly? I know you're 2 weeks into this position, about 2 weeks into this.
What was 8 days?
8 days.
8 days. So, I mean, it's nothing too glamorous. Again, local politics not too glamorous, but a handful of minor things. I think one of the things that I pushed on when I was running it is streamlining what the town is doing, what the town should be doing, what the town either shouldn't be doing or is too overburdened to do. That's kind of how I felt like I make the case. So there's some things like the museum was a public museum. There was like public transportation, those types of things that would lose money or just be poorly run and whatever. Putting the final wording into an ordinance to privatize the museum. So that should happen by the end of the summer. Get it into a 501c3 with board members that know what they're doing, that actually, I make the case, and this is kind of an example for how I feel like I typically approach issues like this. Like, look, I don't point fingers, but I'm like, I don't know how to run a museum. Why should I be in charge of it? It should be in the hands of people that know what they're doing, that are passionate about it. And I should be respectful enough of their knowledge and their passion to know what I know and what I don't know. So, those types of things. So it's been transportation, it's been that, it's been, small things like, we talked about the chicken thing, or, not allowing this one was a recent one, is putting the final touches on an ordinance that allows people to temporarily live in their RV if their house burns down. That was illegal a couple years ago. And it technically is right now. But just things like that people don't even think about. It's like, look, if your house burns down, or you can't live somewhere. Can you just live in your RV until your insurance money takes care of your house? Like, that was a thing that actually happened. It was like, hey, that shouldn't have happened. Things like that. And it was kind of cool because right after, during this whole process, somebody's house had burned down. And so this ordinance is actually going to help them stay on their property and not have to go rent a place who knows where. It's little things like that. But that's typically how I approach things. But yeah, in the near term, big picture stuff, trade school, near term stuff is really streamlining what the town does, better communication, privatizing things that we have no business doing, and doing better at the things that we should be focused on. So like clean water and good wastewater treatment. That's kind of where I'm at. If you don't have clean water, you don't have anything.
Right. Libertarianism 101, honestly, is the way I see it. So, yeah, man. You got any plugs or anything? you used to have a podcast a couple years ago, right? You're a working man now, right? You're an elected official now and all that.
Yeah, this is a relic of that. I bought this for the podcast, this mic, and so I was really excited to break it out again. I sort of stopped doing that once, like, you know, I felt like the show might have hindered my ability to kind of around some things. If I'm talking about some stuff, you're like, why is it? No, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be better, and plus, you know, I guess running meetings and stuff is a better podcast, I guess, to have. But so I don't really have any plugs. If you're in Rock Hall, if you want to come to Rock Hall for dinner, we've got some great waterfront restaurants. Hopefully going to have a great trade school here pretty soon. And just hit me up. I'll take you out to dinner if anybody wants to come out. I mean that. I'm broadcasting that out there. We've got tons of waterfront. It's a beautiful area. Great hiking, great everything. It's a good spot. So hit me up if you want to come out here, and we'll have a good old time. I'll show you around town.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make a little trip out there here.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely should. We actually just had 2 new restaurants open up. One of them is waterfront. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like I gotta say. And then there's another one that's right around the corner from my house, walking distance, and fantastic food. So we'll
love it. That's great. Scott, you got anything else for James here?
No, I'm good.
All right, sweet. James, anytime you want to come back on, my audience isn't that huge, but I really appreciate you coming on. You and your pigs are welcome anytime.
They will be there. I'm sorry. I'm very long-winded. You know.
No, dude, I love it because
that.
I'm long-winded, and if somebody else is long-winded, then it means I'm not long-winded. So
there we go.
Dude, I get it. I completely get it. I love it. So, dude, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. Maybe we'll have you on here again soon. You know, after a couple months, once you know in that mayor position, see how things are going. You know, trying to just get an update and stuff like that. Right? Scott and I are focused on Maryland politics and local politics in general. So I would love to have you come back on here soon, maybe at the end of the summer, see how the summer season went for y'all, being a water town and everything like that. And yeah, man, I just appreciate you coming on. And I thank
absolutely
you for
thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, with that, from James and his pigs, me and Scott, I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you here again soon. Thanks for watching.
All right, guys. Good night.
Have a good night.